society, that's in Chinese, communication in China, that's in English, media market and democracy in China in English. She co-edited several books, co-editor of Global Communications 2008, published in 2008, and Democratizing Global Media, published in 2005. So she is a recipient of both the two prestigious awards, Dallas Smythe Award and the Edwin C. Baker Award for her scholarly achievements. So Dr. Zhao has recently established the Heiyang Institute for Rural Studies in Zhejiang, China, as an experimental site for grounded research and pedagogy in global communication and culture. So Zhao is an authority in Chinese media and communication. She is also a big name in global media and communication, but she's feeling a little bit uncomfortable today. So she was supposed to talk for about 45 minutes, but I would ask her to talk as far as she feels good, okay?
Yeah.
So, and
1 hour.
if you can continue for 1 hour, it's fine with me. After her talk, we'll have a question-answer session. So, may I request Professor Zhao to start her lecture. So, thank you all.
So, thank you for the invitation. I'm normally very energetic, but I have gone like 4 days, 4 nights without much sleep because of jet lag and just travel. Anyway, I hope I can hold on. The title of the topic is slightly different, but still you get the same idea, okay? Yes, I just want to, as a context, to say that I was born in China. Right now, I'm a Canadian citizen, an expert that studies not only Canadian media, global media, but also, of course, Chinese media. I'm not an objective scholar as such. I'm a social change-oriented researcher. Also, I want to emphasize that in today's context, it's very, very difficult to speak about China because in the air, there's this China fear all over the world. And right now, to speak of the China fear, you have the virus. That's even more fearful physically, right? But for the China fear, I'm going to address a bit. I would recommend people sit here to read an article in the current issue, January issue of Foreign Affairs. You know, Foreign Affairs is not my favorite journal. It's, to me, on the right-wing side. But still, in that journal, there's a very good article by an American, pundit. I take that as a reasonable position. Still, even though it's very difficult to speak about China, despite the fact that in 2 or 3 days, it's going to be the Chinese New Year, and actually my brother-in-law is literally dying at this moment, probably. I hope I can catch up to see him, but I still decided when Abu invited me, I decided to come because China is too important, not only for myself, but for all of us. And I hope if my talk can achieve a little bit in terms of understanding China, I have accomplished my purpose. I want to clarify again that I'm not a Communist Party member, okay? But I am, let's say, if I have to confess my political belief, I am a socialist, okay? So, with all that, and it was great, I feel sorry I missed my dear brother Sanjay's keynote speech, but I was able to listen a bit yesterday. And I hope what I prepared, actually, when I jumped to the stage yesterday to talk, it's because that session, for some of you who are there yesterday, about soft power, about peace journalism, really, for me, speaks to, or at least I think it's related to what I have to say here. I prepared this before I came here. So I add one slide to this. But, so again, too much qualification. But the reason is, as I say these days, it's very, very difficult to speak about China. Also, because I'm going to engage with the nation-state logic, and I realize that this conference is held for all kind of reasons, but one is in honor of the 100th centennial of your nation's founding father. So I pay respect to him along with you. Okay, so my title is slightly different, but I hope this provides a better context because that title was made up by him. This is my own title, okay? Reimagine Asia in the context of China's rising, a transcultural political economy of communication perspective. I'm going to throw out this big term, transcultural political economy of communication perspective here. I don't have time to explain, but because Abu is here, I call him Abu, people call him Alam, I think, or Professor Brian. He knows everything. He also mentioned about my book, Global Communication Toward a Transcultural Political Economy. So if you have questions, ask him. I'm just going to use this perspective to analyze my thing. And for really, really brief, basically what I'm trying to do with this perspective is to overcome the shortcomings, what I say in North American white male political economy. So to add a transcultural dimension there. And transcultural for me is a matter of transformation. And also add a post-colonial cultural study dimension there. So my effort is to combine what a Marxist political economy has to offer, but overcome the racism imperialist elements in the traditional white man's political economy and combine it with a post-colonial perspective. I have articles and books. I hope that will help you. Okay, if you are interested. And my entire purpose is indeed, since yesterday I challenged our own youth, not just challenging in a bad way, but just ask us, invite us to think again, together with me, about what other conceptual frameworks we might use to challenge the taken for grantedness of soft power, peace journalism, all that kind of thing, okay? So, let me start with this. You recognize this picture. Asia is beautiful. Not only that, the Himalayas. Because how high these mountains are, Asia is being called the third pole of the world, right? You have North Pole, South Pole, and then you have the third pole. And Bangladesh, China are all just underneath this pole. And because this area has more ice than anywhere else except the two poles of the Earth, it creates a tremendous diversity, geographical diversity. And this is very important for us to keep in mind. No other continent is as diverse physically, culturally, and geographically, everything as here. Okay, this is my favorite new socialist countryside, and here is a picture I used when I last time came here to do a soft power talk. This is how I found on the web about the encirclement of China. These are American military bases. This is from the documentary, I think, The Coming War on China. These are all American military bases surrounding, okay? This is another one, and of course there's geopolitics here. You can recognize which country is supposed to be red, and which country is supposed to be on the US side, which country is supposed to be on China's side. So the point I want is to create a kind of contextual orientation for us. You have the, or at least from the Chinese point of view, encirclement of China from the US, and then as a way to escape, you do the Belt and the Road as a retreat into your backyard, not backyard, I'm sorry, into your back, the Euro-Asia continent, right? So this is the map most of you probably also know, the Belt Road Initiative, right? One is the red is the land, and the water is the sea. And you know, just a few days ago, Chinese President Xi Jinping was in your neighbor country, Myanmar, to do this, what is it? You know, all kinds of projects, push for this. But for me, as somebody who grew up in China, even though in 1990 I was no longer in China, I grew up, or I was very familiar with this song called Asia's Mighty Winds. And if you look at the date, it's 1990. What was that year so significant for China? It was after 98, after China's chairman cracked down, and when the West was boycott China. And it was China's turn to host the Asia Games. So China really put in tremendous effort to do this game. Not only that, the theme song became at that point very popular. And so what it tried to do was to create an Asia identity, Asia proud, if you will. So I just translate a few of the lyrics. We Asia, you know, the mountains are of upright heads. We Asia, the rivers are running hot blood. We Asia, even the trees are linked together by their roots. We Asia, even the clouds are shaking hands with each other. So you can see a romantic forging of an Asia identity. But it's interesting because I know your conference is the Bay of Bengal Regional Conference. But I noticed, maybe I missed the papers yesterday and this afternoon I haven't seen it, few papers were addressing a regional identity, let alone an Asia identity. Everybody talk about their own respective country. And nobody really addressed an Asia identity. Who cares about Asia? What is Asia? Right? So, but we are on this continent that's called Asia. Of course, some people might not agree. So anyway, so here's my introduction. Asia, as I said, as the third pole of the world, very diverse. Asia, the name even came from Europe, right? You know that. As Europe the other. And so basically Euro-American were literally inside us, inside our papers, when we use soft power to do our work, when we engage ourselves live with the reality of American whatever military base or European heritage, all that kind of thing. Okay, so it's literally inside us, Euro-American, right? Also another thing, but in that context, is it possible to develop an Asia regional identity and as a frame for research and analysis, like the overall Asia, but because Asia is so diverse, East Asia, Southeast Asia, South Asia, not to mention, okay, Bay of Bengal, and then you talk about, you know, the Middle East, that's even further, right? So can we think of Asia, imagine Asia as a continent that has somehow identity? And again, as I say, remember the photos I show you. So right now, in terms of the so-called grand geopolitical games, like it or not, you have the US Trump administration redefine the Indo-Pacific concept, right? Because early on, it was Asia-Pacific, American so-called Pacific century. But now it's Indo-Pacific, right? Oh, no, right. And then for the Chinese, as I won't say retreat or aggression, depends on where your standpoint, Euro-Asia integration. And if you close your eyes, think about the world. Which continent is the biggest? It's Euro-Asia, right? And so you have the Belt Road Initiative trying to reach out to the heartlands of Indo-Asia. And then you have not Soviet Union, it's gone, Russia. They have their own Euro-Asia Union as a equivalent of the Belt Roads Initiative, right? So there's even a new term in Chinese wishful thinking called One Belt, One Union. That is, China maybe can team up Because the One Belt, One Road is not mutual exclusive of other initiatives. Well, at least the Chinese government claims, right? So One Belt, One Union, 一带一门. Okay, so here, I was so I travel, I don't carry too many books, but this is a book I've been carrying back and forth, back and forth. There's a map there, it's in Chinese. Because part of what I'm going to do is to exercise some Chinese cultural imperialism, I guess. Because you use Joseph Nye, I'm trying to introduce as a Chinese mercenary, I guess. I hope you don't mistake me for being unreal. As a Chinese scholar from China, to share with you some of the cutting edge thinking inside China, both in Chinese and in English. The other references are all in English, because with the hope that you might be interested. This one is in Chinese, and it's written by a female scholar. She studied Japan, ideas of Japan history, history of ideas in Japan. The English title is called Asia Moment, but actually the Chinese title is it's Looking for Asia. Try to find Asia. And so her question is, was Asia lost? Right? So, and the subtitle there is Create Another Way of Understanding the World. So it's a methodological question. My presentation today is more methodological than a specific media study. But I know it's a film conference. I will tell you one film, but you have to wait until later. Also, speaking about peace journalism, remember yesterday I jumped to it? As we are talking, have this discussion, my dear brother Sanjay showed me on his cell phone, this article. It's by the Diplomat. My brother told me this is a Washington-based journal. The battle for Bangladesh, China, India versus China. So much peace, hey? Even the language is war. And as if Bangladesh is a prize that can be fought by these two big neighbors. What kind of journalism is that? And what kind of zero-sum game is going on here? Forget about, coverage of real war. This is just everyday diplomacy. Why can't we have a different framework rather than win and lose and then battle over? I was joking because, you see, Sanjay is from India, I'm a proxy for China, so the two of us are going to fight over our younger brother, influence him. Is that what we are doing? No, we are not. I want real sisterhood and brotherhood. Okay? I know India, China used to India, China, blah, blah. But we can try again, right? Okay, so that is what I'm trying here. Okay, theoretical methodological framework, as I say. I'm not going to waste time on the Chinese culture, political, economic, global competition framework. Please ask a book for reference. The Politics of Imagining Asia is the available book in English by China's leading New Left intellectual. His name is Wang Hui. You can get it. And look at how the Chinese are thinking, rather than reading what the Wall Street Journal tell you or what Joseph Nye tell you about how the Chinese are thinking. There's the other one, Asia as a Method, again, is a book in English, available, it's a Hall student from Taiwan, Chen Guangxin, but the concept actually came from Japanese scholars, okay? So as a form, Asia as a method, think of use Asia as a method, almost like in a way, provincializing Europe, right? You know that book. But it's a little bit further, because that book only say provincializing Europe, but how do you replace it? What's next? I think East Asia scholars have offered something as an alternative, okay? So as a form of decolonizing knowledge production leading to, in the end, it's about subject formation. In the end, I hope, after this conference, your subjectivity has been transformed, just like me. And that is what the whole thing is about. I learned a lot from coming here, even though I'm tired. So in the end, is how we as a scholar behave ourselves. Not behave, like cultivate our subjectivity. And with all due respect, yesterday I was jumping. When I asked, this scholar, I said, why don't you cite that author? Immediately I was being seen as, well, why can't I cite, if I'm India, should I just cite India? No, that's not what I'm trying. It's not about identity politics. It's about be able to move beyond this kind of framework, okay? So, and so move beyond what? What I call the hub and spook approach to Asia and inter-Asia communication. Like everybody yesterday, everybody was comparing Bangladesh, India, maybe China to America, rather than inter-Asia comparison. Yes, yesterday I hear some comparison between China and India, but the framework is still American, really. So, so the point is is it possible to have an Asia perspective? Use Asia as a method? But I'm not saying the Chinese scholars or Japanese scholars already know, but there's a huge body of literature that's there. It's the Chinese, Japanese, Korea equivalent of your post-colonial literature. But I think it comes from the East Asia region. It has a different perspective, okay? And so this is one way China's leading scholar. He got this award that's more famous than mine. He got the same award as Habermas. Politics of Imagined Asia. Okay? So what I want is try to avoid, as I say, as I confess I'm a socialist. So I want to avoid three conceptual conflations. First is capitalism and market. Capitalism doesn't necessarily mean market. Since ages, we have market. Market relations are there, but it doesn't have to be capitalist. Like Polanyi, his work very well show that. So the conflation between capitalism and market lead to the neglect of non-capitalist market economies. In China, India, pre-capitalist times. Because there's pre-capitalism, it's possible, or can we imagine there is post-capitalism? Although Jameson was saying that these days it's harder to imagine the end of the world than the end of capitalism, right? Most of you know that. Also, capitalism and industrialism. Can there be socialist industrialization? Also, capitalism and development. Can there be socialist development? Right? I know those are all idealistic things, but I came here for all the time not to be doomsday. So, and this is I'm citing Lin Chun, these conflations in line with the dominant intellectual preoccupation with capitalist modernity produce a circularity that brings us all the way back to the confusion between development, westernization, modernization, capitalism. Okay? So this is Lin Chun, my dear big sister, political scientist, London School of Economics. Very prestigious. Go and find out her work. If you want to understand China, read this book, China and a Global Capitalism. And actually, she talk about India and the other. It's okay. It's okay. Yeah. So I just want to show you, because I want to put this in historical context. This picture might be unfamiliar to you, but it's in the early 50s when China got industrialized in 5 years almost by the Soviet Union. I heard that actually Soviet Union offered a similar package to India. But India didn't take all because India thought the Soviet steel industry wasn't good enough. Anyway, that's what I heard. But China's industrialization is a result of a global process, international communism. And later I will talk a bit more about the Korean War. Okay, so I'm wary of, you can call me an apologist for China. I want to be very wary of a restored Oriental despotic perspective about China being, yes, it's authoritarian, but there's more to that. So also another alarmist China threat discourse. Again, I'm recommending you to read the article in Foreign Affairs. Yes, there's no question China is rising, speaking to the title, and it's shaping the world, like it or not. But who is afraid of a rising China? Who in your country is afraid of rising China? Who has to gain, who has to lose? Or if we have to think that way. Or in the world, which country, whose you know, the monopoly capitalists are meeting in Davos, right? Do they have something to lose, maybe, if China becomes stronger? Okay, a lot of people remember, you know, probably you are too young, but some of you here know there's this man versus tank from 89. And so the image of China being authoritarian, communist, scary, nothing better speaks of this. But guess what the Chinese government was saying? We talk about semiology, right? The Chinese government say, look, if this is not the people's government, how dare a person stand in front of a tank like that? And they show the video of the tank trying to avoid the guy. That's their perspective. But the image is about how man versus tank, state versus society, right? This picture, you might think it's protest against the Chinese government. No, it's 2008. Overseas Chinese, including a lot of students, I wasn't there, protesting against CAN. Where's our voice? CAN, be trustworthy, tell the truth. Okay? And this is, of course, when I said the continual Orientalist image, right? This is the Economist. No wonder, I'm not saying no wonder, but the Chinese government sometimes ban the Economist. This is the image. It's emperor, right? And here's Xi Jinping's own image. The People's Party secretary. The Communist Party supposedly serve the people. Okay, so these are different perspectives, indeed, right? Okay, so as I say, visions of Asia, visions of China. Who's Asia, who's China? Or who's India? When we say India's soft power, who's India? Who dominates in India? Which class benefits from the soft power? So both, as I said, both Asia and China were Western created categories. And Western concepts of sovereignty and nationalism were both infrastructure of imperialism and the resources of anti-imperialist, even socialist struggles. And again, paying tribute to your nation's founding father, right? So the secular nation state is a historical achievement. Let's face that. And it's the result of bloody struggle sometimes. But there's also danger, right, in the nationalistic logic. The nation, which Hart Negri in their book, Empire, called the poison fruit of national liberation. You bite it, it's good, but it's poisonous. And so the nation state can be both internally repressive and externally aggressive. In East Asia, where I'm coming from, because I want to provide a comparative perspective for you, right? Imperialist Japan, you know, the Japan that invaded the rest of East Asia, and a nationalist and a socialist China. Earlier you have Republic of China, right? The government that eventually was defeated mostly by communists, retreat to Taiwan. And then the socialist China have been analytically opposing. And temporary, successive embodiments of Asian realizations or localizations of the European origin nation state logic, the Westphalian system, right? So, and also you know that out of colonialism or semi-colonialism, China's state formation process is very different from the subcontinent. You have the partition, you have this, okay? But China, for good or bad, managed more or less to stay together, right? Even though it has complex internal divisions. And I blame that internal division for me being so tired because I had to go to Hong Kong. And from Guangzhou to Hong Kong, I had to go through borders, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And it just really, really destroyed my spirit. And anyway, so yes, you have internal divisions, and you have elastic boundaries, and you have, you know, the issue of Taiwan, unfinished, basically, civil war. Because the Communist Party, when it led the so-called victory, it didn't have the marine power. Who had marine power? Chiang Kai-shek. Who gave that marine power to Chiang Kai-shek? The US, right? So this, I just want to foreground in the fact that there are parallel but different process of nation-state formation in East Asia and South Asia. And that has consequences. So some people were saying that China is, if you want to understand China, imagine the Roman Empire never break up and it got modernized. So what I want to emphasize is, on the one hand, the importance of nation-state logic, at the same time, beware of methodological nationalism in understanding regional, national, global politics. Okay? And in this case, I'm going to give you two examples. It's not my example, it's Wang Hui's example. As I say, I'm a messenger, try to share some ideas with you. And yes, they might be controversial, but I'm trying to present his argument. One is the PRC's involvement in Korea War, the early 50s. Because for Wang Hui, that involvement defines what the PRC is. And then, the second is a more recent article. Actually, I just got it 2 days ago. It's good that I have wire connection. So it's the latest of the Chinese press, published this month, about the case of an entangled history between China and Korea that challenges the European nation-state concept. It's a question of heritage, okay? So I'm going to give you this example. So, as I say, against the rising fear, and some will say China is already practicing imperialism. You know, that trap, all that kind of thing. Wang Hui and Lin Chun and all these China's new left scholars, they try to do? Try to recover an international promise in the historical PRC. PRC celebrate 70th anniversary last year, right? Which, according to them, embody an anti-imperialist rearticulation of the European capitalist and expansion nation-state logic, okay? I know this term are big. In this view, a multinational state, China has 56 minority groups. Of course, in terms of cultural diversity, no comparison to India, but it is diverse. A multinational state that overthrew imperialism of the protracted struggle, revolutionary struggle, armed struggle. The Chinese had a worse time or harder time than India to gain independence. But because of that, they made, the state has a little bit more strength, probably, for good or bad. The PRC carried with it, and this is Wang Hui's idealized reading of what the Chinese state is, a promise that is radically different from the state of imperialist era, the European states, the American state. A promise that has a different propensity from any historical exist state or dynasties. A promise of a democratic social state in which the people are the masters. I realize it's called the People's Republic of China, and then this country is also called the People's Republic of Bangladesh, right? So there's some affinity. Many of you know this flag, and it's funny, people think, okay, what are those 5 stars stands for? I'm not gonna test you because there's no time. Many Chinese graduate students fail the test. They think the 5 stars represent, the 5 ethnic groups. Said no. The Chinese state is not, the flag is not defined by ethnicity, by class. Most of you some of you know. The big star represents the Communist Party. The 4 stars represent the 4 classes: workers, peasants, petty bourgeoisie, professors, and then national bourgeoisie. Not comparado, not transnational monopoly capitalists. Those are driven to Taiwan and are also beaten back to the US, right? Okay, so keep in mind, this is a People's Republic. That's the promise. And this one, you recognize Tiananmen, right? And there are 2 slogans. And I'm not challenging, okay? I'm not comparing. In your most prominent place in Bangladesh, equivalent of this, what kind of slogan you have? In China here, to this side is long live the People's Republic of China. To this side, you know what it is? That's the slogan. Long live the great unity of peoples of the world. Where else there's a newly found nation who try to celebrate the great unity of the people of the world. And that's the basis on which people like Lin Chun and Wang Hui want to claim that the Chinese state, the PRC state, is more than just a nationalistic state. It has a commitment to the unity of the people, not like the American way, the people. It's a class definition of the people, right? It doesn't necessarily include the people who are gathered at Davos, although Chinese leaders nowadays are talking to them, dealing with them, okay? And this is interesting. I just, as evidence to show you that historically there is that socialist international there. And so it's one way thing about into the Korean War, the newly established PRC saw the unity of its own national interests with the global anti-imperialist cause. Beat up the Americans, who dare to do that, right? In particular, the historical process of decolonization in the mid-20th century Asia, that has been greatly, so China's, just imagine, immediately after the Civil War, the whole country was so poor. Mao decided that, yes, we're going to defend ourselves because the Americans already bombed the borders, right? Of course, Jing Zhicheng provoked the Korea War, that's one thing. But the point is, Mao decided that fought the Korea War against the Americans is a way against imperialism, which is good not only for China, for Korea, but also for third world post-colonial liberation. Without that, the Bandung Conference might not be the way it is. And that's the Chinese claim, i.e. the Chinese claim that the PRC has already made a contribution to international post-colonial liberation struggles. I know the Chinese doesn't support Bangladesh. Okay, so and again, I want to emphasize that this intellectual framework is not about Chinese Asia particularism, exceptionalism, like American exceptionalism. It's grounded in what Lin Chun calls historical materialist universalism. Again, I don't have time to explain. Read Lin Chun's book, please, if you're interested. It's another form of universalism. It's not using particularism to beat against universalism, because you can't do that. You won't win. So according to Lin Chun, she's a Marxist. And of course, Marxism is a universalist discourse, right? It's just that it's a counter-discourse against capitalist universalism. It's a progressive intellectual project that opposes left defeatism. As I say, to imagine the end of the world is easier to imagine the end of capitalism. No, so long as you say, oh, China is a capitalist, US is a capitalist, triumph of capitalism, that's it. Why do you need to think of socialism? Just again, think about the Foreign Affairs article. There's an article saying that, oh, capitalism is the game in town, no more any. So the US is liberal meritocratic capitalism, China is political capitalism. Well, those concepts I don't think are going to resonate with the Chinese now that Trump has been so political against a Chinese private company like Huawei. So American concepts might not be as charming anymore. So my point is, we need to use another form of universalism to oppose or to negotiate with escapism. Yesterday we have papers about, violence, extremism, fundamentalism. Those are nativist thinking, okay? So I'm going to take a rest and you read. Read this slide, please. Again, it's quote from Lin Chun. And it's a 2013. I don't know if that point, New Delhi is talking about a Delhi consensus. But at that point, they were talking about Beijing consensus as an alternative to Washington consensus, right? So that's Lin Chun's point. And then she talked about the people's Asia. The struggle of underclasses for national liberation, for certain version of Indian socialism, Bangladeshi socialism, Chinese socialism, some kind of progressive, developmental oriented form of citizenship, rather than, oh, we're great, you're great, we used to be great, that kind of thing. Okay, can I move down? Sure. Okay, so again, another long quote, I'm sorry. And she's not even talking about Eurocentrism. You know what's the term? Capitalistic centrism. And to show you that I'm confident that you still have socialist element in Bangladesh, I pick up a paper in my hotel, and at the op-ed page there's a columnist, voice of capitalist system for Davos. Maybe you can help me to, who is this name? Farag Chaudhry. Yeah.
Former diplomat.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Farag Chaudhry, he was a diplomat. Is he
has some kind of anti-capitalist or critique element?
I don't know, he's from the older generation.
Okay. But anyway, he's naming capitalism. And I say, oh, wow, there's at least one anti-capitalist voice there. Okay. So this is the vision. You might call it Chinese idealism, but there are still people like that. And then, so this is the second dispute recently. In the northeast China, Korea Peninsula, historically there was this kingdom called Goguryeo. And this kingdom, 1/3 of its territory historically was inside China. Another 2/3 was in the Korea Peninsula. And so North Korea and China proposed to apply, and they are successful to get a UNESCO heritage. And this caused tremendous dispute between China and South Korea. Why? Basically, for South Korea, which is a quite monolithic, just one ethnic group, for Chinese, we have Koreans as an ethnic minority. But then, for them, this is their ancestor place. So the Chinese would say, wow, the Koreans are thinking that this is where their ancestors are. Maybe this territory belongs to them. So, of course, it's not that simple, right? Because it's a historical thing. But if you're originated from a land that belongs to another nation, what are you going to do nowadays, right? So the intersection of the Asian origin of different ethnic peoples, groups, and then the modern nation state really got entangled. And Wang Hui's point is we need to find ways to live peacefully. And as I say, back to my earlier photos, Asia has 3/5 of the world's landmass, 2/3 of world population. Just China or India is going to surpass China in a few years in terms of population, one of these two nations have more population than all the developed countries combined. What do you think, right? So diversity of Asia does not allow any unitary culture generalization. That's why probably we never even use Asia as an analytical category. And this diversity is not even within East Asia. People from here might think, okay, that's a Confucian region. No, it's more complicated. And not even within China itself. Yes, we have Tibet, we have Xinjiang. If you follow the European nation state logic, those should be independent, right? And that's, some people are agitating, right? Okay, so on the one hand, I'm getting there. Any new Asia, so the idea is, China scholars will try to think of a new Asia imagination. And this again, I'm citing Wang Hui. Any new Asia imagination must provide an articulation between cultural political diversity and a regional political economic framework. What kind of integration, I don't know. Is going to be one belt, one road? Maybe not the whole thing, but hopefully there's a space for that. But it's not mutually exclusive. I heard, actually last time when I was doing a lecture about Belt Road, I understand that Japanese, American, and India are going to have their vision of something. And they say, well, Japan has better construction quality. So that's a quality Belt Road. Good luck, right? Like, good luck to the Chinese. But I think there are that kind of regional integration frameworks that can diverse and then offer possibilities for different forms of integration, rather than everybody works against each other or deal individually with America, that's what the US like. So on the one hand, you need to think of that. On the other hand, internal diversity does not mean the impossibility of certain regional framework, so long as it's highly flexible and multifaceted. And also, yes, autonomy. But given the size of different nations, it's very hard, right? So Wang Hui, again, talk about two potential directions for reimagining Asia. One is to draw institutional lessons on cultural, regional, religion, ethnic coexistence, because this is the region that's more than ever as diverse. And so far, actually, in countries like Bangladesh, like some other Southeast Asia countries, has been pretty successful in managing diversity, right? And also forming multi-layered open social structure networks on the basis of regional intersections, in connections, right? So to mitigate to coordinate economic development, maybe indeed, I know you're building the highway or the what is it, the SkyTrain. And China always try to sell its high-speed railway project, right? Maybe China has that scale. Why not? Sure. Of course, you can negotiate with the terms. Or maybe you can beat China against Japanese technologies. So, coordinate economic development, mediate conflict of interest, and also the last point I think is very important, mitigate the perils of nation-state system. Because at one point you can be liberatory, but another moment you can be imperialistic. So reimagine Asia. And this is what I mean by transcultural political economy, another dimension. I came from Canada. I fought for democracy in Canada. And so China needs to change. US also needs to change. Who said US does not need to change? It's the fear for change that it's being mobilized, those vast interests. So again, it's Wang Hui's idea. Reimagine Asia and also all the other scholars mean to challenge the self-evident nature of the notion of Europe. And again, I refer people to this book, Black Marxism. Now I'm going to say a bad word about my SFU, with all my due respect to my colleagues. Why, when I was doing, or you guys are doing your PhD, why aren't our white professors teach us this book, Black Marxism? Too bad. According to this book, you know, the Mediterranean is being always crossed, and Europe become white by defining the people of color from Northern Africa away. That's why it's Europe, white. Of course, I'm caricaturizing the argument. But the notion of a Europe as being a white Europe is a historical fiction, or created, enforced. That's the book, Black Marxism. Okay, so you need to think about the possibility that the imperial centers need to be transformed as well. Americans have work to do, and I'm doing my part there too, and I'm you know, both ways. So this is the only way to break away from the logic of new imperialism. So transculturation, which is a term I borrowed from me and Paula Chakravarti, my American or Canadian Indian sister, means transformation of West and mutually transforming. After you have seen me, I hope you have learned a bit about me, a bit of East Asia or Canadian, and I learned a bit about you. And so we're mutually transforming. After we step out of this room, we are no longer the same as we walk in. And that's mutual transformation, okay? So, again, my plea. We should not rush too quickly to project an inter-imperialist or inter-capitalist rivalry relationship between US and China. And in a new inter-Asia application of dominant nationalistic version of the cultural imperialism paradigm. Before critical America, now it's all about Chinese imperialism. Or for Bangladesh, or you know, you talk about maybe India cultural imperialism, I don't know. Or better term, soft power, which is more neutral. Okay. I don't have more time to get into the details about China. So from Obama's pivot to Asia, strategy to Trump's Indo-Pacific concept, there has been a constant effort to contain China. That's no secret. People know that. The trade war tells you that. People are talking about it's not just trade war, it's financial war, it's maybe bacteria war, whatever. Post-2008 domestic social crisis and the neoliberalized Asian media system sometimes can fan nationalism, right? So, a rising China with unsettled territorial sovereignty issues, look at Hong Kong, right? And mounting because the unfinished job of decolonization or other things, and also Hong Kong's monopoly tycoons hasn't been very friendly to the young people, and the Chinese government hasn't been doing very well. Its office hasn't been doing well in Hong Kong either for the lower social classes in Hong Kong. This I don't have time to analyze. But So again, China, because of its own vulnerabilities and also because of its achievements, for example, the 5G, supposedly Huawei is leading, end up being at the center of this two-tiered encirclement strategy, right? Destabilization. Outside its border, all these countries. Today is the Philippines. Tomorrow is border dispute with India. The day after is Vietnam. The day after, who knows? And then inside is Tibet, Xinjiang, Hong Kong, who knows? Maybe next time Mongolia, Inner Mongolia. Maybe Zhejiang, I'm from rich Zhejiang province. Maybe people say, okay, let's break away, right? So there is all that. And so internal problems and external manipulations, information wars, we know that, how color revolution gets started, right? Make it very vulnerable. Even right now, the spirit of the virus can suddenly become a political thing. A train accident, believe me, I studied, really happened, train accident in 2011, immediately turned into internet mobilization by UGC, journalists who can't publish at the party paper but publish on their own channels. Say, if lies can bring down the government, we will do it. That's what they say. 摇翻中国, use lies to bring down the government. That's what they say. I saw it by prominent journalists, Western heroes. And we have, the Nobel Peace Prize winner, Liu Xiaobo, said we need 300 more years of colonization. Those Chinese people know that. Okay, so domestic Chinese understanding. So of U.S., of course, it's divided. So there are struggles, ongoing ideological struggles. I'm too tired sometimes of struggle, sometimes I throw myself in. Sometimes I say, okay, too tired, I don't do ideological struggles. I'm just going to the countryside, help the peasants a bit. Advocate for a new form of collective rural economy rather than American-style privatization. I always joke, yeah, we are the My American farms, big farms. How American big farms were built? With whom? Whose land? Whose land? Native Americans. Where are they? Who are the labor? Slaves. What happened to Africa? Right? And I always joke, are you going to eliminate the 800 million Chinese peasants? Maybe use the bacteria? Right? But if we still operate with that American model, that's some of our intellectuals are arguing. We need American-style big farm agriculture. It's efficient. And what is the trade war about? The U.S. imposed China to buy more American agricultural products. And how can Chinese agriculture farmers, smallholding farmers, be competitive with Americans? Right? Those are the real issues. So it's really, really struggle going on every day. So this is unfinished. The capitalist rulers versus socialist rulers, for me, is real. And of course, in the context of a domestic transnational alliance, you have domestic intellectuals articulate with American interests. I'm not saying, everybody is a traitor, that kind of thing. But it's very, very delicate. Americans want to solve the China problem, right? And it's clear, the statement is there. So the struggle is very intensive. So, and the US has been enforcing censorship. Actually, sometimes people talk about censorship, you know what? Sometimes the Chinese state had to censor anti-American statements. And it's 2003, I think, the New York Times, with regard to the Middle East, has a line saying that if ever people in the Middle East get press freedom, Americans will be surprised at what they are hearing. Same thing. If China ever get press freedom, Americans might be surprised hear what they are hearing. Anti-Americanism. Mao, long live Mao, probably. Of course, that won't be the only voice. So beyond kind of methodological nationalism, one witnessed the working of a transnational discursive alliance, and I've done analysis on that. These alliances have done a lot of things, and some really incredible things. For example, from German magazine, story that Lenin was a German spy. And that's why the October Revolution happened, because it's a conspiracy between German and Russia, Lenin. So October Revolution shouldn't be happening. And if October Revolution shouldn't be happening, Mao's revolution was even more misguided, right? And that's the kind of historical nihilism that's going on. Mao duped by Stalin to fight in the Korean War. If Mao hadn't been duped, U.S. could help China to develop long ago. China could have the big dragon like the small dragons years ago. These are real historical scholarship and media scholarship. And some of my colleagues, like Wang Wei, have been writing, challenge this kind of thing. Why Wang Wei's article about Korean War? Well, now you know why. And as I say, a train accident was turned into an anti-state campaign. And surely enough, the Chinese railway ministry was broke up, privatized. Okay? So, but here's the other side. The Chinese were saying Trump is the best teacher because Trump's trade war against China, right now there's a temporary truce, right? And the Hong Kong protests have served to boost mainland China's reconciliation with its revolutionary and socialist past. Mao, again, has proved more popular than ever. And the moment trade war starts, people reach for Mao's slogans. Imperialism's wild ambition of destroying us do not disappear yet. 帝国主义亡我之心不死. And then 丢掉幻想，准备斗争, cast away illusions, prepare to struggle. And also, Mao wrote a book, article, very famous during the anti-Japanese war, saying that because a lot of people say, wow, Japan's so powerful, we're going to be beaten, we're going to lose. Mao said, it's going to be a protracted war. It's going to be a people's war, and we will win. So this time when the trade war was going on, so many people just began to, in their internet, in their WeChat, circulating these ideas. So Mao is alive in many ways. And of course, the CCP itself, given it's being so corrupt, all that, and the party members don't believe in communism anymore, has been doing educational campaign, force the party members to study, all that kind of thing. Try to reconnect itself with society. And how much you have heard from your news, American news, that what the CCP has been doing. This year, the CCP is announcing that it's going to end absolute poverty. You will hear the announce probably pretty soon, okay? And also, CCP has readjusted development paths. And the funny thing is, when Hong Kong was on flames, the CCTV News announced that we're going to build Shenzhen into a socialist demonstration city. And many of you probably heard of this huge bridge, right? Connecting Hong Kong, Macau, and Zhuhai. I always wonder why not connect to Shenzhen. Why? Because the central government made a concession to Hong Kong that if Shenzhen got connected, that's too powerful. Okay. So again, now here's the movie. Sorry, I'm getting there. Since 2014, as I say, the transnational line, the domestic ideological battle has been intensified. Xi Jinping, become a very, basically, through all kind of measures, try to redirect the ideological debate more towards certain ideas, pro-state ideas, and it has some impact. And right now, as I say, as a result of the trade war, as a result of Hong Kong, and it's funny because I show you the national flag, right? Before, people don't care about the national flag. It's when Chinese TV, mainland China TV shows how the Hong Kong people protest burning the national flag, that the mainlanders began to realize, oh my God, that's the flag, we're going to be in tears. So that's how nationalism is created, right? When supposedly, the outside forces, when the national flag gets tarnished, that the people begin to rally behind the CCP. And so the 70th anniversary of the People's Republic become the most, in a way, successful, well, at least from the image, okay? It's not just the military might. It's this historical context, the US trade war, Hong Kong protest, and everybody become not me, I'm in Canada, become so-called so patriotic. And so also, people talk about movie. I know yesterday there's a lot of debate. The Chinese state has been pretty successful. That is, they have commercialized the media film industry, but guess what? They produce commercially successful films that's also pro-state. And Wolf Warrior 2, which is a real story, when Libya was in trouble, China has to withdraw its citizens. And so this movie actually is a play of that. Me and My Country, that's in celebration of the 70th anniversary. And I'm recommending you, if you have access, Wandering Earth. See what the Chinese vision of scientific fiction, but also how the Chinese are working with the rest of the world to save the earth. And it's very different from American. People see, if for the Americans, if the earth is melting or whatever, we move to Mars, travel. They are immigrants, right? What the Chinese do, we are land-bound. So we build stations, the Chinese build stations, carry the earth to a new galaxy. Okay? And they do so through family bonds, whatever, and with the support of multinational other solidarities. So this movie, or at least is an illustration almost of Xi Jinping's idea of, what is it? The community of shared, what is it? Destination or whatever, shared humanity. Take a look, it's a very interesting movie. And actually the elite early on didn't like, the liberal elites didn't think they're going to make it, but this movie became one of the most popular movies. So some people are saying, this is the maturity of the Chinese audience. So 流浪地球, it has subtitle. You can watch it. I'm not being asked to promote it, okay? So that's my conclusion remarks. It's more important than ever to pursue historical. Why I go back to, the Korea War stuff, the CCP's funding stuff, PRC's funding, historical, relational, and dynamic analysis, rather than just Americans' fear right now. And everybody share the fear, especially today. I'm fearful because, okay, I'm going to Guangzhou, I'm tired, I'm afraid of catching the bacteria, I'm asking for a mask, right? Pay attention to the power of subjective, and because I'm vulnerable myself. And when you're vulnerable, you're most fearful. And you are most easily being manipulated. And I'm already, actually, I won't call myself victimhood. Already, China's rising already took toll on me as a Canadian scholar. I won't get into details. Okay, pay attention to the power of subjective agency. Again, remember, the whole conference, the purpose, with so much energy put out by Habiba, Abu, all these people, this university, to organize this conference is, yes, knowledge production so that you can get promoted. But it's your transformative agency as a scholar. And you're going away to transform your own students, all that. So especially the role of various social forces and their interrelations, both among the internal two nations. And again, this is Wang Hui's concept, social revolutionary perspective of something that East Asia scholars have been talking about. And so, scholarship as a practice, that's more than just shouting against each other, have your paper published, getting American concepts, apply content analysis, or improve it by discourse analysis. It's scholarship as a praxis. We are all political beings, right? And for me, after realizing it's so hard to speak in North America, because some people think that even creating a double degree program so that people like Gopa can not only study in Canada but spend a year in China is sleeping with the Chinese Communist Party and a threat to academic freedom in Canada. So this is what I'm saying. This is what lies at the heart of politics of reimagining Asia and the Asia region. Or, sub-regions like this one, our conference is about, for the study of communication culture. You'll notice that I don't focus on communication culture because I'm, for one, against media centrism. I'm, for one, arguing for critical exam, the conceptual tools we use. Because if the tool itself were misguided, no matter how accurate, how detailed your content analysis is, or how you supplement with your discourse analysis, okay? So, since the West is internal to Asia, Asia will be able to better. This is, again, an argument that's made by Japanese scholars, progressive Japanese scholars. Asia will be better able to realize the promise of progressive European values. Again, this is universalism, not particularism. We're not rejecting democracy. I always like Susan Bach-Morris saying that those progressive moments belongs to everybody. The Chinese Revolution belongs to everybody. French Revolution belongs to everybody. Nobody can claim their national origin. Of course, has national relevance. This is a picture that's so funny. Look at these three people. You recognize who they are, right? The Japanese Prime Minister, the Chinese Premier in the middle, and then the Korea. Can you imagine three of them like so loose? And so it's a conference that hosts the dialogue of these three nations in the past in war and in dispute about, whether, about the heritage, remember I said earlier? The Japanese Prime Minister's office liked this picture so much, it posts on its official website, and the Chinese are circulating. If they can be so loose, that's good. Of course, after a few days, the Japanese sign a treaty with Europe and America. That's the trilateral capitalist alliance, right, to punish China. That's diplomacy, right? This is Xi Jinping a few days ago in your neighbor country, Myanmar, and looking at pictures of Zhou Enlai, Nehru, all that, the long history. And this is what I do. I'm not conducting state diplomacy. I'm not that high. Me, as a professor, do what I can. That is, use my whatever position I have, resource time I have, or family life I sacrifice to create a program. And here's the advertisement. I can't do without advertisement. Find out the Simon Fraser University, Communication University of China, MA double degree program in global communication. And not only that, students spend 1 year in SFU in Vancouver, 1 year in Beijing, and then I use my own personal, basically, petty cash to facilitate, to take students, great students like Gopa, to my hometown, to immerse themselves in cultural ceremonies. I asked Gopa if I can use this for my propaganda, and she said yes, so thank you. I took my colleagues, some of my colleagues didn't know that they need a visa to go to China because they are OECD countries. Not one of them, several of them over the years. I take them not to give conference papers, of course eventually they do, but to study the Chinese countryside. I became an authentic native informant. And sitting in the countryside. And this is my dream. McLuhan has the global village, and Zhao has her new global village. Thank you for taking so much time. Since I come all the way, I just decided to take my time. Who cares?
Thank you very much.
Apologize. Yeah. That's 2 hours.
So thank you, Zhao, for your very rich and nuanced presentation. With your presentation, it consummates our conference very well, because this conference is about building networks, building relationships. So in your presentation, I think two things are very crucial to note. One, that you advocated for a non-Western methodology to understand media and culture. And the second one is you talked about universalism, that you tried to remove some of the fear. I think my Indian friends are in fear because of your rise, and certainly they have border problems with you. So we can talk about resolving border issues between India and China peacefully in the future. So, and our collaboration, our networking can help in this regard. But without taking further time, I would mention here that Dean of the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences at the American International University, Professor Tajul Islam, has joined us. And we also see two other professors. One very renowned economics professor, Professor Manohar, is here too. And There is also another professor of the English department. So they are here. And we have participants and delegates from Dhaka University and from American International University, from India, Philippines, and Canada, US, from everywhere of the world. So now, without taking further time, I open the floor for question and answer. So if you have any questions, comments, or anything to add with Zhao, or even if you want to oppose her, please feel free. Okay, floor is open. Yes. Okay, I'll go here. Microphone or this? There is another microphone around here, right?
I'm sorry, I'm tired, so I have to see. Yeah.
Where is that?
There.
You can take this.
Remote to the.
Good morning, ma'am. Myself, Mujibur. I work in the BIMSTEC. I'm advisor there. But the question I put here, it's from my personal account. Definitely it was interesting to listen to you. And as you know, as a Bangladesh, we know that Bangladesh has got a very excellent relationship with China.
Sorry, what religion?
Excellent relations
Okay.
with China. We are having many collaborations. I'm going on jittering out. And connecting these, I just want to refer that it is long live the great unity of the people of the world. It's nice to read and nice to listen, but connecting this, I want to refer Belt and Road Initiative, BRI. There is, from the Chinese perspective, it says that, this is going to be for the betterment of the world. But many economists or specialists, they say this is actually new Chinese project to create new economic hegemony led by the Chinese. So taking this point, do you see that China is upholding the true pattern of socialism operating in their country system as a socialist mode of production? And relating to these, actually, when you say Asia, that is total Asia, then here is also another point that the two big giants. Two big giants, India and China, then still India is reluctant to join BRI. Well, and another scenario that we are, as a Bangladeshi, or Bangladesh is facing Rohingya refugee crisis. Here, China has a big role to play, but still from the Bangladesh perspective, we don't see it. So having these all elements, how could you define the concept of total Asia that, so far China is looking forward? That's it. Thank you so much.
First, if there's one message in my whole talk, it's not a total Asia. I hope you don't use the term totalizing Asia. You're not. So the point is it possible to imagine some kind of Asia unity in diversity? It's a proposal from Chinese intellectuals and Japanese intellectuals, Korean intellectuals, okay? As opposed to like what I said, the hub and spook approach dealing with the US. That's one. So I'm not, and again, the way I cite Wang Hui, the possibility for certain Pan-Asia framework without sacrificing diversity. That's, so square the circle. Chinese Taiji, right? Yin and yang, all that kind of thing. Just willingness to entertain rather than staying with the current US hegemonic model, align with the US in whatever strategy and bid each other against each other. So that's one. The BRI, and here's I always say, don't ask me, ask yourself. Ask your country. China said this is an open proposal. If India does not want to join it, so be it. Good. Let the Indian people decide, struggle, fight it out. Let's let them work with, for example, I did a presidential lecture at SFU on BRI. And when I was studying, I realized there's that Japanese, American, and India infrastructure project. I said, even in that, the self-description is that's going to be better because Japanese technology are better. Try that. And then let Indian people decide. And if you're Bangladesh, I know you're small, but that's how the nation was formed. You could have been bigger, right? But you break away. I'm sorry. So those are historical reality. Therefore, being big and small is a historical reality. You wish China to break up, but so far, some people don't. So then, for a small nation, use your leverage. One time I went to Singapore, and unbelievable, the Singapore intellectuals. They think with India, China as the two wings, Singapore is going to be the body, carry these two wings. And that's the ambition. So maybe Bangladesh can do that too. And so you negotiate with the Chinese, make sure they're not imperialist, and I will be with you. So don't say what China will do. Ask like the Kennedys, right? Don't ask what the country will do. Don't ask China will do. Of course China will do its own self-interest. And don't expect me inside China or in Canada to fight for China to be internationalist. You fight in your own country to be as pro-people, as socialist as you can, and negotiate with China. And that is my message. So I'm a practitioner. I'm not a pundit, okay? So that, I don't know if that answers your question, but because otherwise, and also another thing, don't jump too quick and too faster. Right now, the BRI only, how many years? 3 or 4 years. The Chinese think about the Silk Road in century terms. So if American already say, oh, you want to look at the Sri Lankan port, the Chinese say, look, the Greece port, right? Oh, the debt trap. How do you know you have the debt trap? How long the US put the third world countries in debt? So just put things in perspective. Again, sorry, I'm lecturing, but the Foreign Affairs article, as I said, Foreign Affairs, it's not my socialist magazine, about China affair. Okay? And again, the message is, do what you can. And I've done what I can. And I'm proud that GoPro is sitting here. And it has risk, it has fear. I paid price. Health price, family price, exchanged daughter who hates me, because I don't have time for her. And then family, I hope my brother-in-law holds on today so that I can go and see him for the last moment. And then, yes, risks. People blame me for being the messenger. And again, I went to Canada again. Sorry, just one more second. You know what happened with Japanese in Canada? When the Pearl Harbor broke up, all the Japanese, like my daughter even, the ones born in Canada, were sent back to to Japan. So I always joke with my daughter, know your Chinese uncle. If racism happened in Canada, and if you are sent back to China, even though she was born in Canada, a pure supposedly Canadian citizen, you know your uncle, who he is, okay? So for me, that's real. I fight because I don't want to be the victim of racism, imperialist wars.
So we have 2 more hands, Professor Sunetra, and 3 more hands over there, Ujjwala and 2 other. So just before you raise your question, I make one thing very clear. Zhao is not representing Chinese state. She's a Canadian citizen working on China. Okay, go ahead.
And also write books on global affairs. Compare with India. Write about Canadian democracy. Okay? And in the countryside.
Thank you so much for the clarification that Dr. Zhao is a Canadian citizen. You have a very lively presentation style, and I do congratulate you on your interesting presentation. However, I had a fun clarify the
Please take the microphone close to your mouth.
Can I borrow you?
Thank you, and I'm sorry to trouble you. You did clarify that your title of your paper was Rise of China and its implications for the South media and communication, which I'm sorry, I don't recall your paper. I just had a fundamental question. Other than the second last slide on wandering war, something, a passing reference to a film, I was just wondering if you could explain to me how your presentation fits into the first BIMSTEC Film, Media and Journalism Studies Conference. I'm sorry, I didn't quite see the link.
I'm sorry then, but it probably doesn't.
I see.
Okay, too bad if you think it doesn't. But I do explain that in every study there are underlying conceptual frameworks. And so what I'm getting is the larger conceptual framework.
I see.
And if you look at what I analyze in terms, think about all the examples.
Yes, the second last one,
ideological
certainly.
Struggle, the journalism, the film, the economist Xi Jinping photo, the Xi Jinping watching, the historical, it's media all over, but not like what you think. And I said specifically that I'm challenging media centrism in media studies.
Thank you for that clarification. I will look for those details. Thank you.
Yes, we go over there. So this was a more conceptual presentation than an empirical one, okay?
With empirical, sometimes you already internalize American conceptual. And that's why I jumped yesterday. With the peace journalism and the soft power, I wrote soft power myself, but anyway.
Morning, ma'am. The longest rail route is from a city in China called YIWU, VU, I mean, I don't know the pronunciation. The longest rail train is from China to Spain. It takes 19 days and it takes 13,000 kilometers. It's one driver, one... YIWU, I don't know the pronunciation. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, whom has it benefited?
Whom has benefited?
This 13,000 kilometers, because basically China is the industry of the world.
Yeah.
And from this particular city till Europe, crossing through Russia, Kazakhstan, and it has not touched India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, not that area.
Right,
probably as neighbors we don't trust each other, I guess. So,
so do you want one or not?
we need it.
You need it,
yes,
then open it up.
yeah, correct. Now, my question is, whom has it benefited? Now, we'll only do things which are beneficial. Exactly. So if 13,000 kilometers rail line is from China to Spain, and from there probably it might be shipped to the US, the Chinese products. So if that is the case, whom is it benefiting?
Okay, it's an empirical question. Somebody has to study it. And as I say, I would imagine it's not just shipped to Spain. It's probably goods are being downloaded all the way to EU. And so I don't know. My answer is I'm ignorant in terms of whom can benefit because I'm not a transportation expert scholar.
So yes, ma'am. So the BRI should benefit somebody, right?
Yes, and
So-
I would imagine somebody must have benefited. Maybe the Chinese state are wasting its money. People say, the regime or the government needs that image to boost its image. So if that's the case, then Xi Jinping or the elites have benefited. But I know who benefit. Like some of my Chinese middle class, they can have olive oil from Spain, wine from France, and the UK, not UK, Spain, consumers can have fresh fruits. Who knows? So again, it's an empirical question, and I'm sorry I do not study that aspect. And that's exactly what I said. Who's Asia? Who's benefit? Who's BRI? But then the question for me is not enough. Make it benefit for you, or the class you represent.
It's a new silk route.
Yeah.
Okay, we have another lady over there.
Hello,
then
ma'am.
Welcome.
Ma'am, through your presentation, what I understood is that somewhere down the line, it is also a challenge to the Eurocentric imperialism. But what it at the same time promotes is a very strong idea of socialism.
Yes.
So you're basically again creating two new blocks. One is, on one hand, you have socialism, and on the other hand, you have a Eurocentric imperialism. But I have a problem with that, maybe because I don't see the integration process as a kind of result of bifurcation of the world into two categories. And when I talk about global, probably I would rather prefer an integration with, at the same time, coupled with a sense of eccentricity, which each nation would want to be entitled to, rather than, because somewhere it's almost like two blocks created.
I'm glad you raised this question because I absolutely. Okay, speak of this. When I analyze, this is the 45 minutes, that's way over. It's an ideal time. Max paper. For me, you got to have some vision of it. Do I call China right now today socialism? No. It has elements, yes. So it's very messy. So if I say dichotomy, imagine the least I can argue is think about the Tai Ji Yi Yang. Right? So I'm not arguing for dichotomy, but I'm not arguing for the end of a history. So it's capitalism all over. Of course, you can say there are diversities within capitalism, but for somebody who unfortunately or fortunately born as a subject in the PRC, who believe in some sense of socialism, unfortunately go to SFU and believe in all those socialist ideas. I'm not posing this as either or. I'm using this as ideal type. And for that, I'm not apologetic for arguing for socialism. Actually, one term I have is ecological socialism.
We'll have just two more questions then. Yeah, you have a follow-up question? Okay.
Can we talk about integration without subscription to any kind of political?
Oh yes, I'm not. Okay. I'm sorry. I stopped my first book. The book is called Sustaining Democracy, Journalism, and Politics of Objectivity. It means that, for me, it's impossible to escape any kind of ideological framework. Maybe once I become a Buddha or something, but no, I can't talk about integration without a conceptual framework. It's socialism, capitalism, fascism, fundamentalism, a lot of reasons. In this case, I use socialism as the alternative framework conceptually, but I already mentioned extremism, fundamentalism, right? And some people already call, fascism. And so some people say the choice is between pauperism or socialism, right? So again, I understand these days to advocate for socialism is not popular. And I'm not afraid of that. But do I buy that narrow-minded binary? No. Do I agree that whatever integration has to be operating with certain kind of conceptual framework? Yes, because human beings have to work through concepts. Okay.
Okay, you can take the conversation forward to the coffee table. Then I would request Professor Sanjay to ask his question. Okay, so Sanjay has to summarize the talk.
No. Oh, well, I need one answer where I'm sure that within the room itself there is a certain amount of, what should I say, interrogation going on. This is a question which pertains to the concept that you put in, methodological nationalism. I'm sure that the moment you mention this in India, in half a second, I will have 1,150 trolls in India.
Okay.
Because there is, you talked about the BRI. It is precisely the methodological strategic nationalism that is opposing BRI. You get my point? It has nothing to do with anything else.
No, exactly.
It's the intersection of the interests. Now we can celebrate the Silk Route and say it was a fantastic thing. Anyway, that's,
Thank you. Can I just add that?
Yeah.
The Silk Road happened before the nation state. And that's why it's different. Now it's in the nation state framework and we can't get out. So that's why your question, what is here for Bangladesh? What is here for China? But the Chinese have no, for India. Sorry. The Chinese have notions of, all under the heaven, whatever.
All right, fine.
Okay.
So each country struggles with a certain amount of intellectual engagement, particularly in the fascinating area of communication and media, because it foregrounds itself as one of the manifestations of our living, our existence, etc. That's a point. But when we overlay it with a certain amount of other macro factors, as Sunitra also pointed out, the subtext somewhere vanishes. So it might be useful, probably to extend some of the imageries and arguments that you made to see how that projection is essentially in conflict with the new forms of nationalism. That would probably give for the next generation or for the future generation, because whether we like it or not, we engage with communication media for the rest of our life.
Yes.
That's our preoccupation. You can't. Okay, now I have to.
That's Zhao's expectation that you summarize her talk.
Summarize, and you speak better than me. That is, the BRI is for the future, for the post-nation state. But we will still have the nation state. But we can't just wear it to the nation state.
Anyway, thanks.
But I think you have just 1 minute to summarize.
Right.
Okay?
I'll try
Can
to.
you just repeat the most nasty question, because you are my SW brother. So in case some people here who really have a very nasty question, but they are too modest, you can say it for them. Read their mind.
No, you see, just to summarize.
I welcome that.
See, as a conceptual, the summary that I would expect is as a conceptual framework of interrogating and struggling with the notions of de-westernization, older notions of imperialism. Definitely, I would say that the kind of presentation you made raises a lot of question within the region as a what should I say, as a unit, and more so as nations within the unit of analysis that you have made. But the only problem will be, whether you like it or not, the presentation would invariably, for the smaller nations or the more ambitious but less capacity nations like India as of now, it raises a different set of questions. You started your presentation with the rise of China and the fear of China. Actually, the fear is not necessarily psychological. It is strategic as well, both from the people who want it and people who are at the receiving end. So one can respond to your presentation from a methodological point of view and see whether the points that you have made can have application in terms of our own approaches to communication and media studies. We wish to be local first, interrogate, then go to the nation next, and then to the region as such. From that point of view, I think your presentation has a lot of importance, and whether it is SFU brother or sister, SFU taught a few fundamental concepts which I see. For example, the whole concept of world system, the notion of periphery, continuity, etc. And more than that, it has allowed the questioning of media centricity more than understanding communication as a process, and going back to the old concept of communications, where road raids, integration, marine routes are also forms of communication and expansion, which people like Daniel Hedrick and others have argued about. And thank you very much for the presentation. I would have more nastier responses, but that I'll preserve it for the tea session. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Professor Sanjay. Please join me to congratulate Zhao for her presentation. So thank you, Zhao, for your great presentation. And this is time for appreciation. I would request Professor Tajul Islam to come to the dais and to hand over a token of appreciation to Professor Zhao. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We have 2 parallel sessions, and you also have snacks waiting over there. So 2 parallel sessions. One is in this room. Another one will be at 3202, room number 3202. Our volunteers will help you to go to the other room. But by this time, please help yourself with the snacks at the back of the room. Thank you for now. See you.